Okay, so this is an interesting matchup. This is a this is a collection of really good players, and I'm sure they were just being dumb and playing stupid tanks that don't really play the meta well, and they were probably winning 80% because they were really good players. But this is where, you know, you coordination can win you these games. They should, if they were in real tanks, they'd probably win most of these just our because of a relative skill gap. I would put our average relative skill right in the middle of teams that are playing Strongholds. So, middle to high end depending. So I know that good players don't like to go down this flank. Good teams don't like to go down this flank. Their tanks aren't really set up for that. We were just going to drive into them and circle them. In this scenario, we were better off being in close quarters. Luckily, I spot the Tog, so this tank needs to die. Everybody's going to shoot him. He has nowhere to go because it's so slow, nowhere to get into cover. Again, good teams, good players are going to play the other flank. I had assumed they were probably going to go there, but if they weren't, they're just YOLOing down this line. We're just going to get into it, circle them. So, got him out. They're down a tank. Now we just need to find them. They're probably rushing up through the woods towards our cap, so we have to turn around and be ready to deal with that. And we see them in the city. So this is actually still really good for us. So they're tank destroyers with limited firing arcs, so we should just attack right into it, swarm them, and get them into situations where they can't fight us frontally in mass. So we're just going to go forward here, getting our tanks turned around, and we're just going to drive right into it, shoot on the move, and try to just roll into targets one by one here. So first Excalibur, set up your next shot as you're moving. I was tracked. Use cover, try to set up your next shot as you're moving. We're going to go to the next one on the south. Again, trying to call targets, trying to stay mostly together as a big blob through the city. The other nice thing that's going on right now is because of the city, there's lots of angles which they can't engage us. So we're repositioning. I have no hit points. I'm going to just go cap in case something else crazy happens, but I don't realize two things. One is that they have that tank destroyer there still, and I get killed by them, which is stupid. I think I heard it way too late, but somebody said that they thought somebody was back there. But we're still in pretty good position here. We just have to kill a 64. Their other tank is nowhere near able to support us. We have theoretically lots of hit points, but we just can't hit this guy. And I don't know. I mean, partially. So he killed like several of our tanks, and he hasn't taken any damage. Finally, get him tracked. And that if they were all playing tanks like that with their skill level, they probably would have beat us because he was able to skirt us, land a bunch of shots. We shot like 30 times and missed him. I don't know if it was individual skill or if it was unluckiness or some of both or whatever. But again, their skill level is such that I'm still a little worried about him winning a 2-on-1 in a tank destroyer in an open map. He should be able to spot us and get some damage in. We got a 2-shot tank. That'd be a high roll. He could one-shot that Cromwell, but that'd be a high roll. Probably going to be a 2-shot. And our other Cromwell can take some damage. So how do we play this? I don't know. There's multiple ways that this could go well and wrong. Excaliburs have really wide gun arcs, though they're limited. So we have to try to get behind him. I think we're unlikely to be able to. Play him at distance. I think he's going to win that engagement. So we're gonna. But it's also because he's going to be in a bush and he's going to be unspotted until the very end. He's going to get multiple shots before we can flank him. So the idea here was to try to get our highest health tank out front, come from an angle that we didn't think he would expect us to come from. Again, using the high mobility of the Cromwell. And we're just going to rip down K line right on the red line, expecting that he's going to be camping out there down the back corner somewhere. We'll get the tank with hit points to draw his fire, and the tank without hit points to hopefully get behind him and try to outplay him close quarters. If he spots us here, hopefully it'll only be at a really, really close range because of our approach. So it's really nerve-wracking here because he just needs to make one good play, and he actually does make a good decision here in a second. I'll show you. But so he's a little bit he's in a different position than I thought he'd be in. He'd repositioned himself onto the hill. I think he was trying to use the bushes to spot both of us. But now again, we have to divide his fire. He's a tank destroyer. He cannot shoot at us from two angles at once. So this Cromwell's going to try to get his back. He needs to take more of a hard angle to the left here, harder left, to get him to turn. There, now that he's turned. So right here, he turns his tank to engage the tank that's easier to kill for him, which is one way that you know he's a good player. One way that you know he's a better player than us is that our Cromwell drove right at his gun. I'm going to actually rewind it here. This is what I'm talking about getting micro outplayed. So even though we have a positional and a tank number advantage, there's just little things that really, really good players do and average and lower players don't do. So right here we have to realize that he has a 90-degree but still limited gun arc, and so we're both of our tanks are within his gun arc right now, and we have to rapidly change that, right? So this angle is still in his gun arc. He needs to be driving this way to get his gun arc to be out of range for both of our tanks, where he can only shoot one of us. And yes, we want him to shoot this tank, but we also need to plan on things going wrong and just flat out getting behind him in the open. He's a tank destroyer in the open. This should be a win most of the time in our scenario. So this arc of attack needs to be more to the left, and the other Cromwell over there, it needs to be doing just the opposite. He needs to be taking an angle, knowing that this Cromwell's getting shot at, to get behind his tank from the other direction. And so that's a little better. It makes him move his tanks in track at least. And this Cromwell then, same thing. He needs to be going to his right to get behind him. And we finally make it work. Right here, he's in trouble, but he's still, you can see, he's maneuvered his tank because he's a good player in a way that allows him to, within his gun arc, still engage both of our tanks. So now we finally change it. Now we're in good shape. He can kill one of us now, and it won't matter because we should be behind him for the rest of the battle. Unless we overdrive it. Again, that's an anticipation thing right there too. Again, that's another reason that I think that I can tell that he's a better player than our players, and it's nothing against our players. They did a good job ultimately to kill this guy, but that little subtle overdrive right there, as soon as you get behind this tank destroyer, you need to slam on the brakes and keep your tank there and not overshoot it. And that little micro misplay right there didn't cost us here, but it could cost us in other situations. And that's why I really feel like your true ceiling of win percentage is determined by your team's overall skill level rather than your coordination. Your coordination can only bump you a certain percentage of wins. I think it's like 10 or 15%, and then your skill level gets you whatever the rest of the gap is. If you're an average team and you can win 48-50%, you should be able to win 60% with coordination. If you're an above average team, you can win 70 and upwards percent of your Strongholds battles through coordination, but also micro outplays. You know, the fewer micro misplays that you have, the fewer chances that you give good or bad or any other team to win, is just going to be better for you. You just have to minimize your micro misplays. All right, I think this is the first battle in this session from Abby. Abby is one of those maps where there's just a clearly stronger position. It's the 1-2 line. For various reasons, it has an elevational advantage. It can shoot over most of the rest of the map, with a few exceptions. We're going to try something a little different here. It doesn't play out the exact way that I thought it was going to. I was told that this was a decent clan. They had good players. I'm not trying to drive off the cliff here. I'm looking at the map. The idea here is we're going to kind of hold our tanks in C2 and get them to overcommit into our light tanks. We're going to get our light tanks spotted, run away, and force them into close quarters, coming around a corner when they're not ready for it. We should be able to smash one or two of their tanks immediately. I shot the corner there trying to describe what I was talking about. And anyway, we're gonna get spotted, run away, and lead them back into cover. So this is not what I was talking about. I don't want the tanks here. I want the Cromwells not spotted. But after discussing it a significant amount, we still didn't get it right. A couple of them got it right, a couple of them weren't understanding what was going on. Anyway, it's not working out. They should be here by now. I didn't really want to fight them on their terms. So that was the idea. Draw them into us. Hopefully, as they're attacking us, they get more spread out. We gain an advantage that way. So now we have to check caps. So they either have gone a different way and are about to flank us, or they're camping. I guess, and that's about it. Those are the only two options. Either camping or they went a different direction and are going somewhere else aggressively. So now it looks like they're camping until that happens. So I was able to spot these guys. This is, again, these guys. These guys are good because they know where to sit and not get shot at from the overwatch position. You can sit behind that rock and not get reset from the most common couple positions. So these guys know what they're doing. We have to attack our Cromwells out into them. I'm still a little worried that we don't know where a lot of their stuff is. I assume that they've got tanks watching somewhere, but we're able to catch them on cap with our Cromwell force pretty aggressively. Just attacking into them. So now we just need to keep the fight fluid and keep it moving and not get caught in any one position. So we're going to get out of the open here with the Cromwells, and we're going to drive around. Oh, we're not doing it in a very coordinated way though, are we? Wow. There we go. Now they're pushing off into the corner. I think somebody said that they were getting shot from the middle, so we knew a tank was there. My idea is to spot them and hopefully not die to them. They still have a few tanks that are unspotted, which is still really atypical. I'm guessing they're in like the E8 Overwatch position. Not entirely sure. But we're in relatively good positioning here. Our Cromwell's got cover, got invisible. Our 64 needs to be a little careful about getting rushed. I know that he's aware of that and he's going to leave if he needs to. But we're going to reposition our Cromwells now to go up there. That's a really protected location. There we go, I spotted there. I should have got spotted there in return, but I guess I did. I spotted where their other tanks were. Now we know where they all are. And so our Cromwells just need to keep positioning. The one said that he got stuck in the open. I didn't want to cross the open there in front of their two tanks, which is fine. I'm going to get invisible and then get distance. I don't want to be rushed. I need to keep my gun in the fight. So now up top you can see that we've got Cromwells in position to take the guy out of the Abbey location, and they further split their forces. So here's another like micro position issue, is that our tank in C7 is not being effective here. As soon as they were spotted where they were, he should have moved. He should have moved either to join in the Abbey, and again, it's hard to call these things because I'm looking at shots and I'm looking at what the next play is going to be. But he should have moved probably a little sooner than that. When they're 3045M was spotted driving away from that location. He would have either been safe to cross or play through that position that he's now playing through. At any rate, we've got an advantage where we can put multiple tanks versus their one. I'm going to be able to get back shots here likely in a second if they're not able to handle that, but they tell me they have plenty of hit points, so they're just going to go for it. And then we've got the Cromwell below him as well, getting into position. So again, we're in pretty good shape here. If he was going to get spotted shooting us, he would have by now, so he's probably way in the back corner. And so now we just need to chase him down. Still not always easy. That back corner actually is really defensively strong. There's little ridges and things. We've got a couple one-shot tanks. We have to be a little bit careful. He shot one of us down. Again, knowing that if you're full health, you need to be the first one in there. You can see that little ridge. I'm not sure if I should go. I should wait. I'm on one shot, so I need to wait 1 second until these other tanks get in there. And I think they're kind of circling each other now. Alright, here we go. We're able to take it down. Similar to how we usually play this map, we're going to, even if we don't have a maneuverability advantage, it's just such a strong position that I feel like you need to be able to take various positions across the mid-ridge and look for early shots. Of course, that is amplified when we have tanks that are far more maneuverable than theirs. It only widens the advantage of a map like this, where you have a really strong position that has various positions of hard and soft cover. We should be able to get out a lot of shots, especially on the slow tanks, well before they're in good positions. So again, I usually like to be the first one here and more aggressive. Because I am in a light tank, I can do that. And then we have to decide what they're doing from there on out. I usually like to, if I'm not spotted, that's the only tank that really can spot us or outspot us or have view range anywhere similar to us. So I'm not really thinking I'm going to find anything back here, but you have to clear the corner because once in a while there'll be somebody in a bush that you get a different angle on with this play that your team can annihilate. So similar to how this map usually plays out, if they're not willing to go field, we have relative map control. Our cap is somewhat easy to defend. It's predictable, it's easy to get back to it. The best way usually is to just swarm it. So we're checking it, we got a couple tanks in position, and now it's become very likely that they're just sitting in the back camping. And I could talk about different ways to approach this and different ways to try to break this camp, but this is a really, really hard camp to break because they're just going to sit behind the cover and show only their turrets, and it's really hard to get into them and outplay them if their team wants to do this. I usually recommend getting a tank into this bush, like so. I'm just going to try to use bush mechanics and shoot him. I'm going to skip the replay ahead here. So basically what happens is we're just going to reposition all of our tanks. I feel like the best way to actually attack this is down the one line. So I'm skipping ahead. Not really anything has happened yet, so here we go. So two points about this, or a couple points about this is like I said, they're really packed in. We're just going to try to jump in and attack them because we don't really feel like there's another way to do this. We could draw this, that's true, and maybe we should have. Maybe that would have been a better play to draw this, but we'll see ultimately here that we should have a numbers advantage. They got hit. I think one of our tanks got shot by Artie. We probably should have continued to be aggressive right here. Rather than stopping on that corner. I can use Artie to even the score back up here. But you know, again, by waiting, we only allowed their KP2 to get into better position. And now, from my position, I feel like my job is to get in there as soon as I safely can. And so I want our guys to engage. But as you see right here, there's actually a Cromwell and a Type 64 both looking at me. So I'm actually holding both these guys' fire. So again, the 64 shot at me there. I'm holding 2 tanks on me, so I feel like that's useful enough rather than running in there. I was holding the fire of 2 tanks, and now that I'm not, I'm going to go in. But we just weren't able to get anything going. So I think the next time we play a team that wants to camp in the back corner and do nothing, I think what we are going to do, as was suggested this night, is just wait until there's like, 90 seconds left to go, because what we can do then is we can force a draw. Just have a designated survivor and force a draw if they're going to camp. Because right now I could easily run around for another 30 seconds. I don't know if I can run around for another 3 minutes and 30 seconds and not die. I'm going to try to outplay them, but they just have too many tanks and too many hit points. I don't feel like mostly I can outplay a single Cromwell for a while, unless I miss 2 or 3 shots or bounce one and he ammo racks me twice. And I missed that shot too. So yeah, I think we just need to force them to draw if we don't have a designated survivor, and force them to draw, and maybe eventually they'll stop camping and back. I just don't get that strategy. I mean, I guess it was effective for them, but it's not really I feel like it doesn't really, you don't learn anything. Why are you playing Strongholds? It's either to win games, which is, I guess, nice, but if you camp so hard that you draw a lot of games, you're not really winning games, and you don't really learn how to win games by camping in the back on that map. You don't really learn how to maneuver as a group. You don't really learn how to read the map. You learn how to sit in the corner, and teams that do that frequently, I feel like, aren't able to progress their strongholds or individual skills. Alright, Steps is a very open map. We're against a team with 2 heavies and a tank destroyer. They have no vision. That tank destroyer has a nice gun, but it's a little derpy, and it's a very fragile tank. It's mobile enough, but it's not like crazy mobile. So we're going to have a vision advantage. We're also going to have an early crunch engagement advantage on this map. Their heavies won't really be able to be there, so we're going to go look for the crunch engagement early. I usually recommend not going down into the valley way down below. So we're already really deep into their territory and not spotted at all. This is probably a little bit of an aggressive play. I was going to fall down behind this little ridge if I needed to, back behind me. If I was spotted, I'm going to continue to be really aggressive. The main force is going to cycle back around to make sure we're not getting flanked. I don't think it's a good play to play one line on this map because the terrain is really, really slow. Trying to get through that kind of water area, but what we're really expecting here is that they're all camping in the back corner. And since I'm not seeing anybody, usually you'll spot them like behind the tracks from this location. So I'm guessing they're all like in D1. Myself and the other light tank are going to get position. I shot there to see if I was fired, to see if I was spotted, to make assumptions about if they were in the overwatch position at A3. You have to always assume that they are in A3. And so this is a micro play that works really well. If you recognize that they're spotted, obviously you recognize that they're spotted, but you recognize that they don't know if they're spotted. He didn't make any movements at all. His sixth sense should have gone off. Usually when that happens, they start wiggling their turrets, driving back and forth. He's completely not moving at all. And I'm just going to wait, and we're going to shoot together. I've called the other 64 over here. So we were both aimed in, but then this guy shows up to go back to the overwatch position. So I really don't want to be spotted here. And now he's got help as well, so the light tank's going to hold our fire. The KV-2 will never spot us. We probably could have fallen behind that rock there. But I know that they're camping. I know that they're in that overwatch position. And so I'm just going to have the Cromwells all shoot up there like crazy, and they'll probably get some damage into those tanks. This KV-2 still has no idea that he's spotted, and he's not willing to look anywhere else. But that's not really an issue right now. So the other light tank's going to go around and try to get an alternative angle to shoot at up them. That second little hill is where he likes to go. There we go. Ridiculous. This guy's like at max view range. Ridiculous spotting capacities of this tank. So I'm feeling like I can shoot because the 78 is very likely behind the rock and not going to spot me because the Cromwells are just shooting up there. I'm having them continue to shoot and give suppressing fire so that he stays unspotted, or so that he stays in a position which he isn't able to spot me. And so again, this is a lot of little micro maneuvering going on right now. As we're doing this, the Cromwells are finding angles to shoot up at the 78. I'm having this, since this guy still isn't moved at all, or hasn't moved at all, I'm going to have the 64 come over and we're going to shoot this guy together. And we're going to have the Cromwell shoot, again, suppressing fire up into the, right before we start shooting, the Cromwells start shooting suppressing fire up into the T-78. And again, this KV-2 could have driven slightly forward to be in cover, but he didn't. Again, the Cromwells are providing suppressing fire of their vision, their only chance at spotting me in this light tank. So me and this other light tank have complete gun dominance right now. Now it's like, is it worth getting spotted? And I feel like it isn't, so I'm just going to move forward. Being spotted by the Cromwell. We've got lots of guns on the Cromwell. I still want eyes on the 78. It's tempting not to shoot. It's tempting to shoot here. The KV-2, I guess I do shoot. 78 must be behind a ridge. There he's spotted. Most of the time, or he has a really poor crew. Most of the time I would expect to get spotted doing this play, and I wasn't, so he must have been behind the rock enough. So I don't remember what happened to our Cromwell. I think he got shot by Artie. So now we need to reposition. They've got a bunch of tanks with minimal health. We should have close quarters advantages because of that. So we're going to maneuver the Cromwells over to basically join in a frontal engagement. And so I don't know how he spotted me there. It's been a weird angle through the top of the rock. But they're on such low health as a team that we should be able to force an engagement with them. Myself and the 64 here are going to go around and see if we can't get a few more cross shots. I'm not really worried about our Cromwell force at this time because, as I mentioned, they have low health. I was hoping that the 78 would pop out and try to shoot me and get spotted again. Again, looking for cross shots here. Sort of half expecting to get shot at and spotted. There's a 78. This Cromwell should be a relatively easy kill for me. And every little bit of hit points that we can knock off of them make them easier to play in close quarters. They're not doing a lot to not let me shoot them right now. On the other side of the map, our Cromwells are just starting to mix it up with them. We feel really confident right now that we're likely to win this. KV2's a one-shot. Myself and the other light tank probably should have moved a little earlier. It's always kind of trying to balance that, you know, are we getting effective fire, and do we need to move to support our team so that we can concentrate our force a little bit better. This Cromwell, I don't think, got the message quite early enough. You should have definitely been joining us as we're moving across. KV2 shot. At this point, this should be a pretty easy win. The KV2 can at least, at most, kill one of us if we go together. It's not really going to be an issue. I'm kind of going to be the sacrificial lamb here and let him fire. Really should kill the Cromwell first. He has the only real chance of doing any more effective damage to us. And we were getting lined up to execute him, and I'll shoot it at the same time, so we're holding our fire against him. And then another tank turns blue and has to sit out. Alright, here's the airfield. I've said numerous times in these videos that I do not think this is a great map for Strongholds. I think it has very limited useful positions and only limited different ways that you can play this map. And control of the E line, EED line, and kind of northern part of this map is very vital. I feel like most of the time you're better off just taking your chances on that flank. And again, there's strengths and advantages to running any type of setup. Our type of setup is not super comfortable in this kind of engagement. We still have a relative advantage in that we have a considerable DPM advantage. Heavy tanks don't have good DPM. The 3045Ms have slightly less. It's slightly, but they do have less DPM than these tanks. They have the advantage that they might block some of our shots and lower our effective DPM. So we get caught up here. I don't really like this because we took way too long to take this corner. They're obviously not going to be here. They would have been spotted. So because of the deployment on this map at spawn, it's kind of goofy. So we have to get back and defend cap. They don't have a team set up that's likely to be there in force quite yet, so I'm kind of okay not blasting back and having myself break off and try to see what's going on, because I think that indicates to me that they're likely camping. I'm going to try to, even though I don't have any support, I'm going to try to get up into this position because it's quite a bit farther forward and it's really powerful for spotting. You just have to be careful about that angle right there, about getting spotted. And so there's about two ways to do this. You can try to get into the bushes to the right or into the bushes to the left. The ones to the right are nice for seeing the stuff along the back line, but you really can't cross over. So I'm going to feel much more comfortable hugging it to the left here and seeing them from this sort of an angle, especially the way that their light tank is playing the middle. And I'm even going to be able to be bushed up here quite a bit. So our Cromwells have repositioned to try to take down a camp and fight across the middle. This is a little bit of a tricky one to break down too. Sometimes there's lots of separate little angles to play from, and I'm noticing now that they're actually really spread out, and they have a lot of their power to the south. So I'm thinking, why don't we disengage and attack heavily into the north flank? Yeah, we could, again, a few seconds makes a big difference. If we get there a few seconds before a lot of their other tanks, we should be able to just kind of swarm through there with our tanks, and get into a position before they can really react, kill a tank or two before they can respond adequately to us. So I'm just kind of waiting for them to reset positions. I think they're going the long way around. they probably could have been a little... I wanted them not to be spotted, so I mean, I think that's fine. So I shot at one of the other 84-85Ms, and the light tank was spotted, so they were able to put it together that I was likely in this bush, and so they're blind firing it. Now that our tanks are ready, I'm gonna reposition myself as well. I'm planning to go in with them at this point. As soon as they get in there, they should be good to go. So right here, obviously I feel like I'm not spotted. Right there I am spotted. Take return fire. I've shot twice now. I just need to wait for him to get distracted. And they shot Artie at me. I can't believe that they killed me with Artie right there. I mean, the 150's dead, but I'm dead. And now at this point, we need to just kind of keep progressing the fight and keep it fluid. And so they've got tanks above us. We do have to deal with these guys. I think we're being pretty effective now. We just have to be careful about taking fire from this angle, and so using the rocks and getting under their guns. It's relatively close battle right now still, but we get stranded a little too much in the open there, and that's an unnecessary shot to take. You don't have to trade with that. You don't have to like trade in the open with tanks that you don't trade well against. That's just another microplay thing. We probably right now should disengage and go around and leave this. And we are talking about that, and turns out that we don't really have a good escape path because that guy was able to reposition, and we end up getting caught out. And so we're in pretty rough shape by now at this point. I'll also talk about the initial way that we went through this to kill the 150 was the way that we were intending to do it. But maybe it would have been better to come up top here first. And that would have allowed us to engage these two tanks, kill them quickly, and then probably kill the 150 as well, as we got into position under the ridge right in front of their kind of spawn area. I think that would have been the better way to play this. So now we're getting pincered, and now I think the correct play is to try to break out any which direction you can. And it's probably best to go attack out at the 50-2 and then just take our chances of getting shot in the back, as we are doing right now. But I think there's a couple things, like I said, that didn't really go well. I think we could have played a lot smarter the way that we attacked this position. I do think attacking the north was a valid play. I think I was unlucky that I got shot by Artie, even though I'd been spotted for like 4 seconds, and they must have fired it immediately. Just a little more fluid on our attack, and been a little more predictive of where their tanks would be, I think would have been better. It could have turned out better. So a similar medium tank lineup on their team. They've got the 84-85Ms, got some armor, they got some vision with their 50-2. We're usually best off to play this map in a way that it can feel campy, and it can be mistaken for being campy, which is a fair criticism of what we're going to do. But it does allow us to try to get safe shots from a distance, and it allows us to use our mobility in a reactionary way rather than use our mobility in a kind of more assumptive and just kind of blind approach type of way. So I'm going to surf the mid-ridge, try to get early vision, try to get some sense of what they're doing. I would expect they're always going to have tanks on the K1 line unless they're all spotted on that initial little run. We have vision in E1 bush, and we have everybody else that should be relatively bushed up and camoed up. At this point in time, if these Cromwells are getting shot, then they are in bad positions, because they should be able to only do effective damage with our 64 spotting. I'm going to be a little bit careful to protect my health here, and knowing that they could kind of roll over this and YOLO me. So I'm gonna be back and forth between playing that ridge and spotting from distance, or sometimes getting out of there. So this is probably the best way to counter what we're doing, is to get into that depression on our side of the map on the 3 line. Unless we're being careful about it, you can get into that. So here they have tanks on the 1 line that need to die. That it's out of render for me. I'm told there are multiple tanks in the open that we're just not hitting, and you can see we're getting spotted. So it's completely unacceptable to be camped up essentially in the bushes and be spotted while you're getting tanks that they've got no reason to spot you, because we have a spotter. You don't need to put yourself in a position to see their tank. You need to be in a bush or behind soft cover. This is a good team, so they knew that we were in E1 based on their spotting patterns. When they were getting spotted, they knew where we were. So it becomes really challenging now. So now we've got to have the front tank spot out and hopefully keep them at range as much as possible. But when like I was saying before, that low ground on the 2-3 line is definitely the way to approach this. If you're trying to get people out of the camp, you have to just tear a tank down there. They've got multiple tanks on the 1 line just shredding us. So the thing to be learned here is that we got to find a way, and this kind of gets back to a principle I was talking about earlier. We got to find a way to make better micro plays, and maybe we just can't because of our lineup at this point in time. We can't be spotted on this line. You just have to know that what positions you can take to get spotted, and which ones are going to work and which ones aren't going to work, and that the front 64 that was out in the E1 bush is the one that's supposed to be getting vision. And maybe we're just not as good at aiming our guns as they are, and that's certainly good. Players at World of Tanks have a couple characteristics. One is micro controls of their tank, but really what it is positioning and knowing how to probably lead tanks as much as click. Anybody can click the mouse, but lead tanks appropriately. Wait for the reticule to aim properly, having better crews, but also knowing what positions are going to get you spotted and what positions are not going to get you spotted. So we lost a lot of hit points there because we weren't as experienced at the game. Alright, this is Ghost Valley. I think this is the first Ghost Valley replay from this session. This is another map where if you're in a mobile lineup, there's just not that many strong positions to take that are forward positions. We don't, versus most lineups, have a great we're not gonna, versus most lineups, have a great time in the city. Our mobility allows us to get positions on the 1 line early, and we're going to do that and use a combination of hard and soft cover to try to get out early safe damage. And if there are opportunities where we have overmatches, we're going to try to take them. So again, I'm in a light tank with Insanity camo and Insanity vision. I'm not spotted here until I shoot at 316 meters. Even then I'm not spotted. I think maybe that little bush covered me a little bit. But so the Cromwells are going to, I'm going to try to get, this is a great bush to spot out from if you can get here safely. I feel really, really safe right here. Cromwells are going to be able to get into position if they need to. A single armored medium tank on a flank is a weird positioning sort of thing. So they're either camping or inexperienced or don't know what they're doing. or I'm missing some information and there's actually more tanks out there. It's odd to send just a single tank to this flank unless you're camping, so I'm not really that worried about getting overwhelmed somewhere else, like them blasting through city. The 64 is there after he had initial kind of support on this line. He's there to make sure that doesn't happen, and he'll be able to reposition based on, you know, the dynamics of what else is going on. We're trying to be a little patient here. If they're camping, we don't really want to rush into that. They'll have multiple shots of effective fire at us as we're going to attack him from the what I call the Overwatch position up in the bushes by spawn, or above spawn, I should say. So it's going to be dull for a second. He keeps popping over the ridge. He would appear to understand that he's spotted. I'm always hesitant to drop arty on a single tank like that. And then finally somebody else shows up, so we know a little bit more what they're doing now. That 50-2 was in that bush right there the whole time, which again you should anticipate. You should anticipate that there's going to be an otherwise unspotted light tank on this map, either somewhere on the 8-9 line or in that bush, because it's a relatively strong location. So we've got guys trying to get shots in, but we are feeling like we need to progress something here. We need to try to break the stalemate a little bit. I could shoot there and then fall back quickly. They don't know I'm here though too, so I think it's somewhat safe to try to keep this position. But he's going to be behind a bush there, so I'm double bushed to him, so I can shoot those. We're going to send the Cromwells in to try to break this up. I'll go with them to provide more hit points. That should be easy kill. Now we get down and up into the position above them. Or in the corner rather, so we have that pillar of hard cover. I'm going to try to keep pushing the vision out here and maybe take some focus away from my Cromwells in the corner. I'll also have side shots. That little push there into that corner was really strong because it allowed us to focus fire without them being truly able to support the rest of their team. So now it's a matter of, should we push up this hill? That's usually a little bit of a dangerous endeavor, especially when they've got tanks in the middle, so I'm still not feeling super confident. We still don't know where some of their tanks are. Maybe they're up there with an Overwatch position, but this E8 isn't really in position to spot us, so we should be able to shoot him as a group as long as we're not spotted from above. So we came below specifically for this reason, to try to shoot into the city. We knew where he was, he died. And now we're in a much stronger position. We know that there's likely not a bunch of tanks sitting on top of the hill that we're going to run into. We know that their Cromwell that was last spotted down below won't be in position to support us. And so it's just a matter of letting the group catch up here, and then letting guys with full health like myself and this other full health Cromwell get in here and tank shots a little bit. But also just giving us a chance to get all of our guns to bear rather than going at one at a time. So, you know, the things that went well on this are that we moved pretty coordinated as a group into the A1 corner and kept the fight dynamic, and they had tanks that were too spread out and relatively out of position to deal with a bunch of Cromwells all at the same time. And the thing that made that easier certainly was when their light tank was spotted. It took away some of the uncertainty. And now the order was to ram kill, but Warspite shot him. We were all gonna ramp kill him. He ruined it. Ruined our day. Here's the next game. This one's on Redshire. This is against, I believe this is against a team that their 64 was thought to be a pretty good player and everybody else was okay. So you can tell he's not in their clan. He's a mercenary looking to play. He had momentarily joined with us right before this battle, and his rating was good, so we kind of took note of that, and then we saw him on like one of the next battles. So we're going to try to take position along the east of this map. I'm going to try to find them. I expect that they're not going to be very aggressive. Their light tank may or may not be in communication with them because he's not in their clan. This is not a bad bush if you can get into this one. I like the next one further forward if you can get it. They have a Cromwell in the face of our mediums over there. I'm going to wait till I'm bushed to shoot him so I don't get spotted. I think I asked at least to chase him down a little bit. I can't remember what the thought was at the time. Obviously we're not going very hard into that Cromwell. He was just their scout. It's nice to try to get him out if we can, but he got behind cover. And I was getting effective spots. Unfortunately we didn't shoot anybody there on the hill to any large degree. I'm still worried. I'm thinking I need to leave. Wait till I get bushed. I'm going to shoot. He knows where I am. And he's going to keep coming. Our Cromwells have been spotted. And he knows I have no support, so I need to get out. I probably should have stayed low there. I was kind of hoping I could take one more glimpse through here and get a spot, but I should have been leaving there. I didn't have any realistic way of living if they got much closer. So hopefully I can get out. Again, we've got guys in position to put fire into him, and they're shooting. There's about 5 shots that went by and 1 hit finally. I'm double tracked now because I'd used my repair kit. The Cromwell was tracked on the hill there for a minute and didn't die. 64 is using the cover of the hill very well. So again, that's I don't know, unlucky or whatever, but we would have had multiple Cromwells taking multiple shots at that dude. And we didn't able, even though we tracked him in the open, we were not able to kill him. So, you know, something that definitely didn't go our way. So the other 64, we're kind of into our position here. Our other 64 is going to try to spot out. I would tend to not use that bush. I would use this bush here. I think I communicated that at the time, and he's going to move here in a second. Hopefully our other Cromwells are in positions to be able to fall behind the hill if they need to, but also shoot across if we get some spots. This is my favorite position. I feel like you have really deep vision on multiple angles from here, like that guy. Again, it's just a matter of getting some shots to hit him. I usually won't shoot that if I'm the light tank. Depending on where I think the other tanks are. I may have shot that one, I don't know. I'd be worried about getting spotted from a tank up in the bushes there. I don't know what equipment he runs. I run binocs on mine, so usually I would be really still in these bushes to let the binocs set up. So the question is what to do. We're down a tank. They should have been down a tank, but the Cromwell lived in the open somehow. Should we reposition to the south? Should we keep doing what we're doing? You can see that they're trying to counter spot us now with their Cromwell from that side. Again, probably bad plays. We're sitting on top of the hill, exposing ourselves to fire from this direction. Um, finally spotted there. I would say he should have anticipated being spotted based on where that 64 was. Now we need to kind of regroup here and try to figure out if we can play them at range or if we need to move. They're still not exactly close enough that we can really reposition and attack out somewhere. But I will say that we're not getting a lot done here either. We have, theoretically, we should have been able to shoot, these tanks should have been able to shoot a lot of shots without taking a lot of damage, but you can see we're like half hit points here as a group in general. And so the idea of taking relatively safe fire isn't going very well, and I think that's a combination of a lot of things. Probably not having vision like we need it. I think it's us getting micro outplayed, and one of the reasons why, I guess coming back to that, why we have some degree of a ceiling for what percentage of games we can win, because those tanks should have been in relatively safe positioning and or known that they weren't in safe positioning and not getting all beat up and taking a whole bunch of shots for no reason. So they're going to go try to kill what they can there. 64 is going to get a reset, but their 64 is right there on the hill. If he would have been able to anticipate their 64 pushing out right there and maybe get, worked on him, maybe then we could have disengaged here. But I think this is just a case of maybe we were too static, maybe we were not decisive enough, too campy, but I think we got micro outplayed a lot too. We let tanks live that shouldn't, and we lost hit points when we shouldn't, and that makes it so we can't be as flexible later in the game in terms of pushing out and trying to be aggressive on some flank. So this game is a pretty good example of how mobility can be a considerable advantage. It's on fjords. We've got, again, I think we played on fjords earlier. We've got some heavy tanks that we're going to want to try to not necessarily play right into their faces. So we're going to split because we feel like they're not going to be able to really effectively keep their force together, and so we're somewhat safe splitting our force then as well. And so we're going to take a couple Cromwells to the south, try to spot down the line, get away if they need to, be able to defend themselves if they need to. Everybody else is going to go up to the middle donut here, get an early spot on the 64, and hopefully we can kill him. Got some tanks that should have shots. These Cromwells on the corner need to be shooting immediately. They're in a pretty strong position. They're not really in danger of getting overrun. My idea was to try to take a wide angle and spot, just like that. You can spot from this bush. Usually. At this point I probably should just kill him. And you see their force concentrating in the center, so we need to counteract this. I don't think our Cromwells in the south are really in danger here. They should be able to skirt the heavy tanks for quite a while. And regardless of which way their force decides to move, we should be able to respond to it with our mediums. And so now it's kind of a case of, let's go back towards the middle, shoot across the water, and see if we can't shoot them a little bit from two different angles. They have, I should have mentioned this earlier, so this was in the discussion at the time, they have the C-100Y, so we know that he's going to be camping very likely in kind of like the E7 bush, E7 area, or potentially on the peninsula at the southeast corner. So we're not coming around the corner here because we know that he's going to likely have clean shots on us if we overexpose ourselves to my side of this rock. So we're being a little bit careful about that. When they're stuck in the city like that, it's a little bit difficult to deal with them. I feel like before they made changes to this map, there were better opportunities to shoot from the position I'm in, down towards the south. The Cromwells in the south should have no problem dealing with that single tank. They're just going to have to quickly kill him and then drive away and get cover. There's the kill. Now they can disengage. You're going to see them going off more towards the north here. We should be spotting the backside. Yeah, see, the 64 is moving now. That should happen sooner to be able to check the backside to keep our Cromwells safe. Now we know that they're not rushing, but that would have been a reasonable play by them to rush either side of that southern area. So when the KV-2s is spotted coming up the road, we don't really want to play him close quarters at this point in time if we can. Although it would be actually a reasonable play to rush him and try to get him out. The Cromwells are going to initially I was thinking we're going to have so many of them out of position we could rush around to the northeast and then go down the zero line and kind of take the tank destroyer by surprise. But their KV-2 was able to get in position, and I'm not sure, I wasn't able to exactly see what happened, how he got so close into position here, but again, another sign that their force is considerably split. The Cromwells are going to come help me here. I'm thinking if I can get out of position, out of this dangerous spot here. Just need to survive for a minute more before my Cromwells come and help me. There I was able to duck down behind the ridge. Now I should be okay. His mistake is he should realize he's going to die and he should have tried to kill me here. But at any rate, we got him out. So now, again, their force is pretty divided, and we have made a conscious effort to not play against some of their tanks as much as possible. Take them one at a time. We made a move there, like we're going to come back the other way, just to get unspotted and make it look like our forces were moving until we went dark. And now we're going to come back down. The idea is through the south here. I'm clicking on the map. We know where their tank destroyer is likely to be. Their KV-2s are unlikely to be able to really be in good position here. But then we see that KV-2 there. I'm not spotted. Their tank destroyer is likely to get shots on us, and we don't know where the SU is. Now, or STRV, I mean. Their other KV-2 probably is out of position. I think it would have been a valid play to push across here with these 5 tanks. We may have got unlucky with the KV-2, or he may have missed, and we probably would have taken a shot or two from the C-100Y, but we probably would have killed those 2 tanks, and maybe the STRV depending on where he is, but we didn't feel that comfortable. The KV-2 actually is dug in fairly well, and the C-100 is dug in pretty well, so it's a little bit of a risky play across the middle. Now that we know they're there, that means their other 2 tanks are relatively isolated, so again, we don't feel too bad about making a play like this because of it's not really that long of a drive for the Cromwells. It is a 4-minute game now. 4 minutes left in the game. I'm going to pause and let the full health tanks get in front of me, since I'm a potential easy kill for them. So there's a questionable call here, admittedly. Kind of which direction to go. I'm still worried about getting shot from a distance from the tank destroyer, but also from, we don't know where their STRV is, and I don't know if the other KV-2 would have tried to reposition again. So his STRV is finally spotted. I should be able to get all kinds of effective fire in here. Meanwhile, our other tanks are going to attack the hill. So he was last spotted getting tracked right there, so I'm just going to fire blindly. And what happens here is maybe predictable? I don't know. I don't know the terrain up there all that well, but what happened was the road was so narrow we had a hard time engaging the KV2, and he ended up killing a couple of us because we couldn't get our tanks up the hill. And now we actually had a couple tanks get blocked up there too, so I'm getting a little worried about time. We don't have to find them, we know where they're going to be, but we have our tanks now considerably out of position. The misplay is that we probably should have thought about just leaving that KV2 up there. We would have all been driving no matter which direction we would have come from. And we probably would have been able to dodge a shell from him. If not, we probably would have been able to minimize how much damage and effective fire he would have got. He maybe would have got one shot in, which again in the back of our tanks is pretty bad, but we would have likely just stranded the tank up there. We could have capped or something, killed the other tanks and capped before he got back into it. So now I'm getting really nervous about time. We're just now getting off the hill. There was a lot of, oh, let's try to push this dead tank out of the way sort of thing, and we kind of ended up having to say, no, we're going to lose the game. Or draw it because of time. And we just slide down the hill and take your chances. We got to get moving here. So now we're going to pincer them. If I get shot at all, if they're right here on this corner, the other tanks go immediately. If I don't get shot here, then I should be good, in good position to crossfire. I think I'm getting a little nervous and probably pushed a little too deep, a little too fast. Now the other Cromwells are finally able to catch up and get our main force together. A 3-on-3 wasn't going to be very good. Now we've got a 5-on-3. And so these guys need to get right in there, and I was very nervous, and I was not very calm at this point. I was kind of getting a little bit antsy about getting in there, because we just need to. We're gonna be against the clock here. So this autoloader, I believe, has shot all his shots now, so I'm pretty comfortable about just going in front of him. And here again, so we lost 2 tanks going across the open against these guys. In pretty considerable danger to lose it still until the SU died. Now he's got. No, I don't really care if he kills me because we should easily get the win here. There's no way that guy's going to be able to reload and shoot 2 tanks. We got to be careful not to ram ourselves. So it wasn't as fluid as I would have liked, but it was a lot of dynamic change of direction, change of plans, and until the very end when we all got stuck on the hill, which again might be because of a questionable call, it went pretty well until the very end when I thought we cut it way too close. Okay, here we go again on Himmelsdorf. This is, as I've talked about, I think a challenging map for our tank lineup. Probably the most challenging one. The corridors are as limited as they are on this map as they are on any map. The way that we're going to try to play this is to try to see them if they're coming through the middle and respond. We're going to send our Cromwells to like B3, hopefully to stay there and be unspotted, so that if we have an advantage, it would be that we know where they're coming from and we can respond. This map usually plays really quick. It's generally a bad idea to go to the hill. I was hoping our other 64 would go spot the middle. It probably doesn't matter that he didn't. So we're going to see here that we're not seeing them. They're unlikely to have gone anywhere in the middle. I would have spotted them. So we're going to dispatch our Cromwells to go down the tracks and get into their back line. They could be camping back there. They could have gone up the hill. If they went up the hill, it's really hard to get back unless you're really responsive. It's really hard for their team to go hill and then get back to respond to this, especially with the delay like this. It allows them to get further up the hill. If you go immediately through the middle to cap, sometimes you get a situation where they can respond. So I'm going to wait here for the crew to catch up. I think there's some important points to be learned on this. If you're going to cap rush, I probably should have capped. What we should have done was have myself and the other 64 and one of the Cromwells triple cap, and then everybody else push up. The reason that we would do that is that I have more disadvantages compared to the Cromwells, especially in a close quarters fight. I can take fewer shots. I'm one of the more experienced players on our team, so I also kind of want to be out into it. So I know that they're camping in this little cove here, and our issue becomes is that though we're going to try to cap them out, we've got one of our tanks, that Cromwell, going kind of the wrong way to be able to support us. There's no way he's going to get around in time, so I get shut down very quickly. Everybody else needs to take positions to inflict as much damage and or distract as they can. In this situation, because they're so close, I would make the argument that our capping Cromwells should probably start to think about engaging on a corner to not their entire team, but to part of their team. They can expose themselves minimally to that part of the team. Again, we're realizing that we're not going to cap them out in this situation when they're here and there's 16 seconds left. It's just not going to happen. So we have to turn this into a fight. Again, one of our Cromwells ended up chasing around, probably, retrospectively, not the best sort of team play. It made sense at the time what he was thinking. I get it. But now we got a close quarters fight, and so essentially we need to focus fire right here. You can see they're kind of leaving the Cromwell that was out in front and the 64 a little bit. They're trying to get in the cap because they understand that they need to get back and reset. But we were calling targets as they pushed into us here. We've got a Cromwell that's pretty healthy. We've got a Cromwell that's driving around that's pretty healthy. So what ended up happening is, though they had multiple advantages, they have an armor advantage. They had a positional advantage because they caught one of our tanks out and killed it earlier, and one of our Cromwells was going around the other way. So they had every advantage in the way that it played out, but we were able to focus fire, and this is a scenario where I think both the combination of our ability to focus fire, but also the skill gap on this. We were just a stronger, more skilled team, even though they had every advantage. Right, pretty much when the action started happening there. Okay, Himmelsdorf again. So, I already kind of said my thoughts on how I think Himmelsdorf can play out for our type of team. This one is just accentuated in principle of the last one, where we have mobility, which it's harder to use on a city map. They have tanks that are very limited in terms of mobility, but also the Su-100Y has really limited gun arc, mitigated weakness because it is a corridor map. He can just kind of sit down a corridor somewhere and still be pretty effective, and can't quite one-shot us, but he can do a lot of damage. So we're going to spot the middle, put our Cromwells on the 3 line, and respawn. Hopefully they push somewhere, and we can use our mobility to gain a favorable matchup somewhere somehow. We don't spot them. We're going to reposition down the 3 line. Quick pause right here. They could be doing the same exact thing, but we're going to move the Cromwells in. The assumption is one of two things here. They either went hill or they're camping back there somewhere. I think B3, A4 are the stronger positions on this map, if you're going to do that sort of thing. So you got to be a little careful on these corners as you approach them if you're the first tank before the rest of your team, like myself. Got to be a little careful. I don't exactly want to get into it too much, but I do need to see them. So here they are. The 150 is the call. We're gonna blitz into the 150. I'm just waiting for my team to catch up at this point. I would be getting out there if they were with me, and there they go. So I'll go with. So we're gonna blitz right into the 150. We need to take a little bit. Here's another important point that was said this night. We need to take a little bit better approach to minimize the oncoming fire from the overhead position there. There's ways to use the buildings as cover. So we need to get all of our tanks in this 150. I honestly don't remember what was called as in terms of, are we going to cap or are we going to push out? I think, again, completely in retrospect, the correct play is probably to try to push out with a few of the tanks when they're way back there like this, and then cap with the rest to make them maneuver. I think there's different ways to think about it. So we've lost a lot of tanks already. A lot of it, again, I think was because we took damage coming down the A line, and I think next time what we should do is reposition ourselves to come up the 5 line, and that'll considerably minimize the fire we take getting into this. I think we can still get to B3 and take a look, and then reposition ourselves to come down the 5 line rather than this long corridor. Again, we're way down on hit points. It's gonna be pretty tough to come back at this point. So I think this is mostly a matter of approach. We probably could have played this one smarter. It makes sense what they did with their team lineup. Here's another little thing, I guess, too, is this tank really should be attacking. You can't let 4 tanks come to you. If you have any chance of doing anything, you have to kill them before they all get onto you. But yeah, I mean, I think there's just limited ways for us to do well on this map, and that's partially what it comes down to. But partially, I think we could have taken a different approach when we were going from the south to the north. Airfield again. By the lineup, we have mobility, especially since they have like heavy tank, the KV2. I don't think really that the STRV is a very strong tank either. I feel like it's got some disadvantages. I don't know if the guy's just grinding it or whatever, but Rudy's fine. 85, 80 Ms are good tanks. But again, we're a hyper-mobile team with limited ability to use our mobility because of the map. We're going to try to focus fire and take an early fight while their tanks are still getting into position. So we're going to wait on the corner. Actually, we're just going to go in. I never know if we should wait momentarily or just force the fight. So they don't have any tanks here. We can't get caught in the open. We need to turn around. As soon as they're not there on that corner, I call that a mistake. As soon as they're not there on that corner, we need to turn around and go check cap. Now this one ends up being a little different. That we spotted them, so we know where they are. We don't think that they're really going to rush cap. We can respond if only a couple of their tanks are back to cap because of our mobility. So we have to assume that their tanks being spotted where they are, and again, we know because of XVM that there's a considerable skill gap in this matchup. So we're going to try to get into a camp break here. I'm a little worried about the Cromwells down there. I think they went there because they felt like they had to close the range to not get shot up. I'm a little worried that they're a little too close for comfort, because we really, if they wanted to come kill those tanks, they probably could. We'd have a few tanks shooting them back. Maybe we would be able to kill them, maybe not. I think we'd lose too much, so we're going to try to get them out under the supporting fire of our other tanks. And again, I think this is just ability and experience thing. They don't realize that they should be attacking us. They probably should have pushed right into those 2 Cromwells, or at least corner fought them a little harder with their armor. So I'm into this bush, and they don't know I'm here, and I'm going to keep it that way. You can see the Cromwell, I think he might be looking at me, but I believe that he thinks he's getting spotted by our tanks up there, which is fine. Obviously, if Artie hasn't been shot yet, this tank is in danger. He's going to be spotted and stationary, and that's not a good thing. Our 64 got shut down there. I don't know if he was trying to be too aggressive with spots, but the principle here is that when we're trying to take a camp down, we have to get multiple firing angles and vision. And it's sort of hard to do on this map because of the corridor nature. You know, the tanks from the center, the crumbles in the center, are close enough where, especially if they're shooting, they're going to get spotted. So you kind of have to know that you're going to get spotted on this map. And that's a player experience thing. You just have to anticipate getting spotted. So we're talking about different angles to try to get into them with now. I like the Overwatch position up here has a lot of hard and soft cover. I think it's a really strong position. I don't love that position, and we talked about that, and he's repositioning now as well. You can see we're getting some shots here and there. It's not this map, when it camps, tends to play very slow for the reasons I talked about. There's just lots of cover in the back, and everything else is a corridor, so you don't have as many firing angles as you would on a more open map. I still don't believe that he thinks I'm here. I'm not sure if he thinks he's spotted or not. You know, he's been continuously spotted, so his sixth sense won't be going off. I think he's probably poking and peeking and trying to get his sixth sense to go off so he knows if we're there still. And, you know, it hasn't gone off for several minutes, but he's not really moving, so I'm just going to use Artie and get one tank out of the way. That's stupid and lame and cheap, and I don't really love it, but I guess it's in the game and we'll use it. So you can see we did end up catching out one of their other tanks. The Poodle had gotten into a poor position and got himself killed. I wonder if we should have just blasted all the buildings down with gunfire. I think we start to do that a little bit. Maybe we should do that next time, is just shoot as many. The problem is probably run out of ammunition. There's so many buildings in the cap. So we're talking now about how do we get into this, because we have a tank advantage. Are there ways that we can get into them and deal with part of their force and then push? So either from the north or from the south is valid. I think there's so he's getting spotted now, and he knows that there's only minimal angles that he can be spotted from, so I think he's starting to catch on to where I probably am at this point, and I'm starting to realize that a little bit. Anyway, so there's only you can go through the south, you can go through the north, and the idea would be that if we go from one direction, part of their team is going to be behind all those buildings that are sitting in cap, and they'll take a second to get there. So if we can get into them relatively quickly and not be spotted until the engagement happens, then we're going to have a considerable surprise advantage, and we should be able to kill a tank or two before they do much damage to us, which will further. There you go, he blind fired. If we kill a tank now, it'll just further our gun advantage. So obviously it didn't hit me clean. I don't know if it hit my track or like the ground next to me. I should have been paying more attention. I'm not positive if he would have seen his shot explode or if he would have seen it disappear. So I'm a little nervous he's going to do it again, and of course he does. That one certainly didn't hit me. It just splashed near me and did all kinds of damage to my very lightly armored tank. So I'm pretty nervous he's going to do it again and kill me. Meanwhile, we do have some movement going on. I'm going to back up further next time he's spotted. We got some movement going down. We're going to push across the south. I almost died there. We're going to push across the south and do just what I talked about. We're going to hopefully not be spotted as we make that run down there. You can see they do get spotted, but they should have only minimal chances to shoot us before we're underneath their guns. And if we move all together, like we did a decent job up there, then we should be able to deal with the STRV and start working out across. I have no hit points, so I want to join the fight, but I don't want to get one shot, so I'm going to try to delay my movement into there until I'm pretty sure all of their tanks have turned to start engaging our crown walls. Because even with 4 hit points, if I can do some damage, then I've made use of my gun. And you can see I was able to get several shots off before I die. So we're doing a really good job of mopping up here, but that's a common principle. It's really common for players to get super frustrated when they're on low health and be like, oh, my life's not worth it, I might as well drown or whatever. But as long as, especially in this kind of format, as long as you have hit points, your gun is still doing the same amount of damage with 1 hit point on your tank as it would with full hit points. So if you can find a way to use your gun in this situation, I knew I could use it because my team would be there with me, and I was able to contribute significantly to the fight, and I wasn't too worried about it because I knew that would likely to be able to happen. So again, a pretty good, from a team perspective, a pretty good push across the open and then get into them and engaging, and we were calling targets really effectively on that one too. Alright, so we haven't really played Prokhorovka that well in this session, as compared to, I thought it was a map where we played really strongly the week before when we played Strongholds. We're going to continue to try to use the principle of open map against a team we'd rather not play close quarters unless we have some other sort of advantage. And use our mobility to try to adjust to what's going on. So we're going to try to spot out, and we're going to try to get our cromwells into a position where they can get free damage. And that's something that's really the key that we haven't done well, is we haven't been getting free damage out of our cromwells on this map in the previous games from this session. They've been getting spotted, and again, I go back to the idea that is probably a experience and a player skill issue, that we don't know where good positions are well enough. So this guy's in the open, he needs to be getting shot by cromwells, and I don't know, maybe he's behind the rock too much, but once again, some kind of anticipation from our cromwells would have been nice. I don't know if we just missed, if he was behind the rock, I don't know. Our 64 was not able to get into a good spotting position over there. He got spotted himself. Their 64 took a bunch of damage, our 64 took a bunch of damage. But this is really bad. We can't have no vision. We can't have everybody in the corner, or else this happens. So I don't know if it was a scenario where I needed to communicate that differently, or if it was a scenario where it was communicated but action didn't happen. I've always sort of thought that scouts are the hardest to play because they require the most. In our setup, the scouts are the hardest to play because they're the least forgiving tank, and they require the most snap judgment, independent thinking. You know, I'm getting shot. When do I know that I'm invisible? Oh, we need vision here immediately. And so what should have happened is a single Cromwell then should have taken his place to try to keep them at range. Now our whole principle of how to play this map has completely degraded, in that we have them spotting multiple Cromwells, because like 3 or 4 of our Cromwells pushed out. Again, I feel like they felt like they needed to, which isn't. I can't fault them for that, and I think we did talk about, like, if you need to push out here, the lower kind of depression area on the 3 line is the place to do that. So we've got Cromwells getting spotted and getting shot up. Hopefully my gun will start hitting some of these. Hopefully the other 2 tanks alive will start hitting some of these. And so we're getting some of it taken care of. I believe that's a double track, so he's not going anywhere. You know, that was a pretty good play by that Cromwell to push in. You know, as they were changing the angles on us, I feel like we should have passed off and moved back more to like where I was. Again, a tank or two needs to be out front, and I think that's fine. But we just I think we kind of panicked and didn't know what to do, and I think it's just an inexperienced thing. So right here we're deciding what should we do. Should we try to take on this 3045M knowing full well that the 64 is a one-shot and he's likely to be somewhere along this line, or should we try to get the one-shot tank out and then just get away from the 3045M for a while, which is something that we should both be able to outdrive just because of speed and maneuverability. So snap judgment, we decided to push out against the 64 and try to get him. If he knows that we were moving in this direction, his correct play is to get away. And so their 3485M takes a great angle to intercept our movement. But I catch him out, and I'm going to try to get a few more shots off of damage. I don't believe I'm spotted. Their 64 is spotted. But right here we decided, right as he was getting spotted, we decided, well, let's leave him then if he's not in that corner, because our Cromwell was saying he wasn't getting spotted in return, so let's leave him and deal with him later and then come back and deal with this 3045M. And my mistake is that I tried to engage him too early. I should have waited for my help. I felt like he was doing a pretty good job of attacking in this 3485M. He knew where I was likely to be, and he's doing a good job of trying to isolate me. And so I have minimal other places to go. I could have tried to get out and go this way. I probably should have done that. I was misinterpreting how long the Cromwell would be able to kind of take to come join me. Also, I would point out that I bounced his flush side like 2 or 3 times of this stupid thing. So, I mean, he should be a one-shot right here. But my idea is to try to delay this fight. So I'm going to use the dead tank for cover, and I'm going to try to just bounce around him. He nails a shot into my turret there. I think it was probably kind of lucky. So, we have actually a hit point advantage at this point in time, so we need to kill this thing. Of course, Cromwells get on MRAC constantly. I'm feeling good about this engagement. We should win this. But now where the heck is their light tank? He should have been responding and pushing back to the middle as our Cromwell was spotted, but there's no way he's going to get there and see him. So, how do you play this? I don't know. There's lots of different ways. I think it's dangerous because the 64 has such good camel and view range, and this is an open map where he has so many different ways to be more aggressive than our Cromwell. So the idea was to take a position which would be somewhat unpredictable. We're way on this side of the map. We could probably still get back to reset cap if he should show up there. And then we're just going to bush up and hopefully give him a few minutes to make a mistake. I think this is Bob. He wanted to take a bush back here. I don't love this bush location because I don't think it gives you enough vision down the one line, which is, you need to find a bush that gives you vision out across the open, but also down the one line. So I'm going to ask him to find a different bush here in a second in order to change that. Here he goes. Gotta be careful getting in. This is better too because it's got multiple good things going about it. Now he's got vision. He's got vision down a couple corridors. He's got vision over the middle. He's elevated so he can fall back behind the hill if he gets spotted, and he's got vision up towards the south now, towards down the one line. So I think this is a much better location. He's got to be a little careful not to show his tank there. That's better. And also, like, he shouldn't get spotted unless he gets proxy spotted. And if he gets proxy spotted, he has a good chance of taking 3 shots. He could take 1 for sure. He might be able to take 2 and still survive. So, playing this tank in close quarters is going to favor us. But ultimately, if he spots him and has the jump on his location, that'll make everything easier. So a matter of being patient. The question also becomes when to do something different. Should we draw this if it's not happening in another minute, or should we go find him, use the bushes back along the one line? Hopefully he's caught out and not doing the same thing. I feel like there's a lot of ways to be wrong on this, and that goes for both teams. Like, you know, a one-on-one with two low health tanks, there's going to be some luck involved. There's going to be there it is. There's obviously stronger positions, but there's also going to be some luck involved, and we, I think, had a combination of good position, luck, vision control in a decent location, and then somehow the Cromwell gun didn't act derpy and it actually hit the tank he was shooting at. So we got saved. I think we made some good plays there, and we made some foolish plays that need to be cleaned up. Or, I don't know, foolish. Just plays that need to be cleaned up. Alright. I think this is the last one. This is Fisherman's Bay. Again, I feel like for maps like this, like Runeberg, it's best to try to get into position early and get free damage as much as possible. So we're going to rush to the center ridge along kind of different various angles and be ready to shoot them for early damage. And again, it's really, it can't be said enough, we can't trade with them. Trading is not good. To sit there and go 1-for-1 favors them because of armor and alpha. And I think to some degree gun handling. I believe the 3045Ms have a little better gun handling. Whereas like mobility and DPM are our advantage. So if we can catch them in smaller groups, that's going to be really, really favorable for us. So snuck a shot into me there. It's probably useful to take a shot there. I mean, it's not useful to take a shot, but if you take a shot there, you can still make it work, because it's really useful to see what they're doing. So we're just gonna try to get. I'm gonna try to get a different angle on things. Our Cromwells are gonna hold, and ideally, again, I don't know exactly their angles. I don't know exactly where they're at, but the idea is to not take a bunch of damage unnecessarily and not trade. We're just holding a position here. Well, the two light tanks can find a different angle. I'm not sure how I spotted there, unless there's somebody in the back. That was a really odd angle to get spotted. So we've got angles on them. Our Cromwells are in a defensive location, so we should be able to roughly work a flank here. So that worked out well so far. Again, the Cromwells have an even numbers matchup because we've got one out and there's one Cromwell over here. We're going to do our best to outplay this Cromwell, and then we'll join and we'll engage them. Our Cromwells now just need to be defensive. They need to hold corners, hold angles on corners, and not lose hit points until we can finish this. So double bushed, I feel really comfortable right here. He's leaving. As soon as we get this guy out, we need to join the fight, and hopefully our Cromwells are at least staying even. You know, they don't have to win right now. They just have to stay even on hit points. And again, trading 1-for-1 is not staying even with those tanks. So we could have arguably repositioned back to our main force and caught up with them there. This Cromwell is so isolated, I feel like it's useful to try to kill him. We probably should have split our light tanks right here, actually. I probably should have chased this Cromwell, and the other 64 should have gone up and joined our main force. You can see they have decided to push. Again, that needs to favor us. We cannot we can't feel very good about them pushing directly into us and winning, even though, you know, their tanks are somewhat set up for that. We should be able to be super defensive and hold angles. I'm a little disappointed with how many low health tanks there are right there. I don't know if I think we're calling targets effectively. I hope we're calling targets effectively. So now it's just a matter of, can we rapidly get the low health tanks out and turn this. This is very reasonable to turn this into from a 3v2 to a 1v2, which we did by focusing their low health tanks. So, sloppy in some aspects in that we got a little slow pushed here. They obviously, this is the graveyard. They obviously decided to come around and get into us here. I feel like we're better off taking positions on the buildings and holding angles and making them come into a line of fire and take an early shot. Maybe they missed their first one. Now we were shooting 2 for 1, and now we have an advantage. Obviously, I wasn't over here. I don't know how this played out, but that's, I think, another. I think my theme for today is such that, again, just globally, you win Strongholds battles by a couple of factors. One factor is ability. So, like, sometimes your team is just that much better than the other team that you're going to win because you're better than them. That, I would say, on average, on average, I'd say similar types of teams play this. So there's only a few really, really good teams with, like, outstanding across the board skilled players. They don't even typically call Strongholds. They don't have guys directing traffic at all. They just all know what to do, and they're just talented, and they would all have made the same decisions based on the map knowledge and the availability of what information is going on the map at the time. So these guys are hard to beat. You can beat them with coordination and working together and having a strong sense of when it's correct to sacrifice your hit points for the team, and calling targets and focusing fire, and I think that, again, I've said in this video, I think that accounts for probably like 10 to 15% of wins above what you should be. So assuming, like, on this night, I think we had a lesser talented lineup, and it takes players that were less used to playing with us. So we had what I would consider like probably a 50% lineup, where we should, if we were just doing our own thing and kind of playing and not coordinating very well, I think we should win like 50% with this sort of a lineup. But we're able to get that up to 62% for this night. Whereas the time before, I think we had a stronger personnel type lineup, where we had some players that had played a lot of Strongholds with us. They knew what we were doing, but also they're just more skilled players who, if we lost communications and everybody was just doing their own thing, I think that we would probably win 55 to 60% with that lineup that we had in the previous session. So your coordination can amplify your skill level, but sometimes your skill level sets you back. And it's really subtle things, and I've talked about some of those subtle things in this video. It's little positioning things. Are you getting spotted when you shouldn't get spotted? Are you losing hit points in a controlled way when you want to or need to, or are you losing hit points out of pure dumb random luck, which does happen, or are you losing hit points because you're being careless with tank positioning, not even on purpose, but because you don't know various game mechanics quite as well as like a really skilled player does. So I think that's my summation of tonight. I think we did some good things as a team, but not as good as they could have been as a team. And I think that some of our limitations tonight and or close calls were things that will probably get cleaned up as individual players' play improves, regardless of if we're playing in a team setting or not. So I'm gonna leave it with that, and food for thought. I reserved the right to be incorrect, I guess, and I don't know everything, but that's kind of the way that I saw these battles developing on this session. Thank you.